Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming. As you are welcome here. Visitor, friend, or longtime member, you are welcome here. With little children, or your partner, or alone, we joyfully welcome you here. You are welcome here as believer or doubter, joiner or loner. You are welcome here. Feeling a part of us or not, full of energy or not, seeking a vision or a rest, you are welcome to join us as you are. We acknowledge that we're in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish, Nez Perce, Blackfeet, and Anishinaabe people who shared the Helena Valley as hunting grounds. The indigenous story of the Helena Valley began long, long before the arrival of Europeans. We honor those who walked here before us. We honor the path they have shown us in caring for this place for generations to come. We strive for justice and fair relations with their descendants. We're going to start out with a song that is not number 698 in Singing the Living Tradition. It's number 346. Come Sing a Song with Me. Please stand as you're willing and able. And Cheryl McKenty is going to accompany you on the piano.
What number do you want? All
346.
Do you want all four verses? Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. There's only 4? Thank you, Cheryl. My preferred chalice lighter hasn't arrived yet, so if I could have perhaps a volunteer. Thank you, Marianne. I lifted a chalice lighting from the UUA website. At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting a flaming chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are part of a great community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with the Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth. And number 434 in Singing the Living Tradition will be our opening words. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Now we will have our offering and say thank you for your gifts this day and for all the gifts of action that make this community possible. If you're visiting, please remain our guest. Your presence is your gift to us. And then we'll sing Thank You for Your Loving Hands, page 25 in the Open Your Heart Songbook. Now we're going to have our story for all ages, which is Little Cub by Olivier Dunnery. Give me just a moment to set up my laptop and we'll project it up on the wall for you. And we'll also have the youngsters come up to the front and listen to the story up there. A little cub lived all alone near the forest. He did not like being alone. He did not like the dark nights. There was no one to take care of him. Old Bear lived all alone deep in the forest. He did not like being alone. He did not like the dark nights. There was no one to take care of him. Poor Old Bear. Every morning, the little cub splashed in the stream. He watched the silvery fish swimming around his toes. Said the little cub. I wish I knew how to catch a fish. But there was no one to teach him. Every morning, Old Bear trudged to the stream. He caught a large fish for his breakfast. Said Old Bear. I wish I had someone to share this fish with. But there was no one. Every afternoon, the little cub scampered in the meadow and looked for berries. What he most longed for was the sweet honey he could smell in the beehive in the hollow of a tree. But the little cub was afraid of being stung by the bees. His stomach was empty. The little cub was often hungry. Every afternoon, Old Bear ate a big lunch of oatcakes spread thick with honey. After eating his fill, he stretched out in the meadow and took a nap. His stomach was full. Old Bear wasn't often hungry. Every evening, the little cub curled himself into a ball and tried to sleep. He snuffled and whimpered. He did not like to be alone at night. Every evening, Old Bear trudged through the tall grass to his cabin deep in the forest. Old Bear grumbled and grumped. He did not like to be alone all the time. Being alone made him grumbly and grumpy. One day, Old Bear heard a strange noise coming from a pile of rocks. He stopped and listened. Old Bear peered into the rocks and saw a little cub curled into a ball, snuffling and kicking in his sleep. Old Bear leaned over the little cub and sniffed. The little cub opened his eyes and yowled. Stop that yowling, said Old Bear. And the little cub stopped yowling. He stared at the big bear watching him. Who are you? Asked the little cub. I'm Old Bear, said Old Bear. Who are you? I'm me, said the little cub. Old Bear and the little cub stared hard at each other. Neither of them blinked. Said Old Bear. Said the little cub. Old Bear picked up the little cub. Who do you belong to? Asked Old Bear. I belong to me, said the little cub. But maybe I could belong to you. Old Bear cradled the little cub. The little cub felt safe in the big bear's arms. He yawned loudly. I'm going to call you Little Cub, said Old Bear. I like that, said Little Cub. Old Bear carried Little Cub to his cabin. He gently placed Little Cub in the big bed. He tucked the warm blanket around him. Will you teach me how to fish? Asked Little Cub. Yes, I will teach you how to fish. Now go to sleep, said Old Bear. Will you teach me how to get honey? Asked Little Cub. Yes, I will teach you how to get honey. Now go to sleep, said Old Bear. But I don't want to get stung by the bees, said Little Cub. I won't let you get stung by the bees, said Old Bear. Now go to sleep. Old Bear sat beside the bed. Little Cub stared at Old Bear. What now? Said Old Bear. I can't sleep, said Little Cub. Do you want me to tell you a story? Asked Old Bear. Yes, I'd like that, said Little Cub. I've never had a story before. Once upon a time, there was a grumpy old bear who lived all alone, deep in the forest, said Old Bear. Little Cub closed his eyes. He fell fast asleep. He was no longer hungry. He was no longer alone. Old Bear sat by Little Cub all night long. Good night, Little Cub, said Old Bear. I'm glad you're here. The end.
I loved that book. It's one of my favorite books.
What do you think it's about?
It's about two bears that have no one coming together and becoming a family. And they're both sad that they have no one. But when they meet, then they're happy that they have someone in their life. Because they don't like being alone. Because being alone means you have no one to play with, or no one to eat with, or no one to do anything with. And also, that's one of my favorite books. I read it every night, and I read it to myself when I was asleep sometimes.
All right, and now we're going to sing the young ones out.
So the little ones are going to childcare, and the elementary kids we're going to go across, the elementary age kids, we're going to go in the room across the hall, fireside room. Okay?
That brings me to my borrowed message, borrowed from Reverend Sean Neil Barron. I met him this summer. Summer and I went to Unitarian Universalist General Assembly in Portland, the annual meeting where we all get together and have thousands of UUs together and share the space and share ideas and just basically have a good time. And during the closing service, Sean Neil Barron gave this message, and at first I thought of kind of crafting my own message in the same vein, but it just would have paled in comparison to what Reverend Neil Barron presented. So I went to him and asked him if I could use his words because the message really resonated with me, and I thought it would really resonate with this fellowship as well. So he gave me permission, and so here is Sean Neil Barron's, I switched it to Why Do I Go to Church, but his title was Because Church. My friends used to ask me, why do you go to church? After I became a minister, they stopped asking. But the thing is, I never did. Why do I go to church? Church is the place that has broken my heart more times than any other. The beauty of its potential obscured by the labor of reality that churches are human, not utopian endeavors. Every church I have ever been a part of has never been exactly who they proclaim to be, never been exactly who I wanted them to be, never been exactly who I needed them to be. Why do I go to church? I have witnessed professionals violating the trust granted to them, cloaking their deceit in the garb of spiritual language. Congregational bullies allowed to rampage in the name of nice or freedom of belief, causing beloved people to step away, the pain too great to continue. I have witnessed trauma like a puppeteer pulling the strings, compelling us to play out old stories again and again and again and again. Why do I go to church? Why do we keep going? The longer you stay in, the more grief you accumulate. The grief of people who left the faith, left your church to attend another or not, or simply left life. And even as the joy of new people arriving rises, you look around and sometimes realize that you don't recognize anyone anymore, and you wonder if that must mean that it is time for you too to leave. Why church? For it will be true that the church that you join will not be the same church that you leave, changed by your presence, changed by the presence of every other. That's the beauty, that's the magic, but it's also the heartbreak. There's so much that changes in the life of a church. The musical stylings of generations come and go, the language and words of reverence shift. We decenter what was once assumed to be our essence, to reveal the liberatory power within. We constantly evolve and revolve around our core, that determination of love to break forth. That question, why church, does not have one answer, not one that can endure a lifetime, not one answer the same for each of us. Our answers like stars, forming new constellations, guiding us in every season of life, pointing us toward a simple impulse. Why church? Well, simply because church. I call it the casserole reflex. That when the church hears the news of the diagnosis or the accident or the looming crisis of death, divorce, or disaster, somehow even before they realize it, the casserole dish is in the oven. An instinct to care just baked in. The same reflex taught me that certain events happen, you don't call, you don't text, you go. Awkwardly, sure. Uncomfortably, of course. But you show up. Why? Because church. It's the feeling we get gathered for imperfect worship, a collection of friends, strangers, united by an almost indescribable promise that answers a question coded deep within us, the need to belong, to be reminded of that belongingness, the full embrace that conveys the truth that all the parts of you, the questioning parts, the doubting parts, the cynical parts, the hurt parts, are not only welcome, but they are necessary here. That if universal salvation is true for all of us, then it must be true for all parts of us too. Why? Because church. It's a temporal embrace, an embrace with one arm ancestral and the other futuristic, converging together, a complex embrace, holding as much pain as potential, a belonging that grounds us and orients us into time itself. A belonging that says you, yes, you, are part of an unfolding story, the end of which has not been written. And here we will face it not alone or unequipped, unprepared, or unprotected, for we have stories and practices, rituals and music and ancestors and baggage. And you don't need to strike out on your own. You don't need to make it up all by yourself. And look around, you don't have to do it alone either, for you have a people. Why? Because church. For a society that tells me that I need to be self-made, that I need a church that tells me I exist because we are. For if the choice were independence or interdependence, there is no question that I would choose that gnarlier path we can go together. It is church more often than any other place that never lets me forget it. Why? Because church. It's the beauty, you know it, of a child dedicated in the arms of its family. It's the 85-year-olds that when the pandemic hit became Zoom experts overnight and then taught others. Casting off the confines of a physical sanctuary for a digital cathedral, knowing that church was never a place but a people. Why? Because church. And when my heartbreak becomes too much, caught in that cavernous gap between promise and reality, I testify that every time I muster the courage to keep showing up, I surprise myself that I can find love in broken people and hopeless places. And I find that even my own brokenness doesn't disqualify me when I'm willing to put in the work. And even as certain people grate on me like sandpaper, I feel them wearing down my rough places, granting me much needed lessons in patience and compassion, forgiveness and humanity, giving me the chance to practice being human. Why? Because church. For our churches are like base camps, teams fanning out, forming rapid response networks of prayer and safe passage for all who seek safety, for all who seek self-determination and shelter. We feed each other and are fed. We dismantle the prisons of supremacy living within and around us, all the while growing us awkwardly and lovingly as we navigate the challenge of a mission that calls us to the brink of all that we love and know and invites, commands us to step out in faith, to commit to be changed, to covenant, to promise to a journey without knowing what intimacy, what vulnerability will be asked of us as we embark. For if we knew, friends, we wouldn't say yes, but when we look back, we can't help but thank God we did. Why? Because church. I have witnessed friendships formed in social halls, sparked in classes that have saved lives. Zoom chats brimming with prayer, heartfelt messages launched not into a void, but as offerings into the heart center of a community that breathes, that conspires both IRL and within and beyond those ones and zeros that constitute our now other gathering place. All of it revealing shards of holiness, reflecting belovedness imperfectly, but truly whispering, you are not alone. You belong beyond your choosing. The story is not over, and we each have a part to play. And though you may not believe it, or feel it moving within you, or trust it enough to let your guard down, what church can do is make love tangible, not simply theoretical, joined together in one body in church. Amen. Next, we're going to do song number 354 in Singing the Living Tradition. We laugh, we cry.
play most of this as an introduction, because it's been a while, yeah?
And our closing words are number 698 in Singing the Living Tradition. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard. The path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Alone. Now we will extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now we'll be stopping the YouTube stream, and we will take time if anyone has